Black Clover has just dropped a boatload of information on us, including Lucius's plans. So stay tuned because I'm going to be covering that later. But if you could wage war on that like button, I'd greatly appreciate that. But without further ado, let's get into the video. Last chapter, Asta was successful in taking down Sister Lily, and with doing so, he undid the Paladin transformation. And as we see here, Sister Lily is finally coming to. She's even apologizing for what she did while she was under Lucius's influence. So just like that, she was snapped back into reality.
Snap back to reality.
This also confirms that they are working against their own will, because as she says here, I said such horrible things to you, which obviously means that she doesn't agree with what she was saying, and I'm assuming that accounts for the other Paladins as well, considering how they were before the transformation, of course. Asta obviously knew that she was under control, so he's not worried about what she said. Now we get a cool little insight into Lily's past here. She was troubled by how the noble realm discriminated over magic power. That's why I became a nun, for the sake of peace and equality among all people. But even within the church, discrimination and classism remained. No matter how much I prayed to God, nothing changed, and so I ran away to the Forsaken realm. So Sister Lily is actually a noble who fled that lifestyle to be in the Hodge village with Asta and the gang. As she says, even if I could only do so little, I wanted to try saving anyone I was capable of saving. And yet and she's cut off here as Rio comes in and he says, Asta got stronger because you saved him. This time you can depend on him to save you, right? Now that's pretty interesting, because before we kind of just assumed she was always a citizen of the Hodge village. That attention to detail is pretty interesting now, because it's more of just a general prejudice over those of a lesser class. There's even small intricacies within, as we saw, like the church in a noble village, which just makes the story overall just seem way more realistic, because that's really how it goes down.
They got serious, man.
There's usually like a general prejudice, and then in small areas here and there, people try to enforce their will or power over others, even if they're on the same level. So it's kind of tricky in that way. But Lily here warns Asta of Lucius's plans. She says Lucius is preparing for the final battle in the Clover Kingdom. There's only 3 days left until Judgment Day. He plans to combine the Zagratis siblings' body, blood, and bone magic together with his own soul magic to gain unfathomable power. Now this is something that was actually speculated in the community, considering the fact that those magic types are actually compatible on paper, but we have yet to see them actually work together in the sense, because every time each of the Dark Triad were in battle, they were separated. We never really got to see any teamwork amongst the Zagratis siblings. Actually, yeah, now that I think about it, they were pretty much solo in their fights. To think what it would be like if they actually had some teamwork and were on the battlefield together, that would have been kind of broken. Just having two of them in the same spot. Yeah, now looking back, I can see why they were actually able to dispose of them like they did, because being able to single each one of them out and then gang up on them while they're alone, especially considering how compatible their magic types are, that was definitely the move. Because who would have known if a couple of them were on the same battlefield, let alone all three of them, not even considering the devil magic that they have, that they could also combine.
Oh, you want something to do, man? Huh? No.
It's also said here that with that, he could alter people's minds and bodies however he pleases. He could even create people from nothing. His magic would be truly like that of a god's. And then on Judgment Day, he'll take control of all the magic in the world.
Wow, the pressure is getting worse.
Now this is actually really exciting for me, I gotta say, because I've always been skeptical about the fact that Lucifer wasn't like the end-all be-all villain, but this kind of takes the cake for it. I get the whole idea that Lucifer was like the king of the devil, so he would be like the last line of defense of evil or whatever. But now thinking about it, Lucifer didn't really have any intent behind his action. He was kind of like a devil that was supposedly evil because, you know, he's a devil. But Lucius here definitely has a lot more intent behind his actions. I can see why Tabitha went this route. This definitely makes a lot of sense, because this plan of his is really thought out and calculated. From the very first step of him working with Adramalok to obtain Lucifer's hearts and also take control of the power of all the other devils in the underworld, as well as now having control of the Dark Triad and now having Paladins on his side, supposedly being able to spawn his own Paladins in the future. He has a lot up his sleeve. And I do gotta say, this might be a hot take, but Lucius might just be the better option of a final villain than Lucifero. Not only just because he's stronger than him, but because I do think he does have a lot more in his arsenal at actually like taking over the world. So he's a much bigger threat. Because now that I think about it, it's not even like the devils were really working together. I mean, we even saw it with Lucifero and Adramalock. Adramalock wasn't working with Lucifero. He was actually working for Lucius, who's the main villain now. So yeah, Tapata, he's in his bag right now, I gotta say.
That's why he's the GOAT! The GOAT!
This is definitely the right direction. I like where this is going. Come to think of it, that actually even makes Asta more of an important protagonist, because someone who's going to take control of all the magic in the world, who can spawn entities that are paladins, all these hacks at his disposal, all that in his arsenal. Who else is going to have hacks on par with his besides Asta? This all ties in perfectly, because we obviously can't give the main protagonist, you know, all these hacks, all these buildups, without also having a villain who's actually formidable. And I do gotta say, Lucius is definitely looking more formidable than Asta right now, so this is definitely gonna be quite the challenge. But of course, coming back to Asta here, he's just shocked to hear that Lucius is actually planning to take over all the magic in the world. And Lily here is just apologizing for the fact that she even contributed to that, saying, "I'm so sorry and I'm ashamed of myself. I joined Lucius, unsealed the 5-headed dragon, and brought misfortune upon you all." Asta just has to cut her off here and says, "It wasn't your fault. I will never let you take the blame for this." Which is true, because, you know, she was under a whole soul manipulation. Like, that wasn't even mind control. Like, she straight up got her soul altered, so she really can't take the blame for that. She thanks him for what he says and then quickly passes out. Rio points out that she isn't dead, but the only way she'll open her eyes again is if you defeat Lucius. And they call it Rufumito just in case, to make sure that she doesn't have any fatal wounds or anything. Yeah, Asta might have went a little too crazy on her. So is it the fact that Asta like went a little too crazy on her, or is it the fact that Lucius somehow made it to where if she was defeated she can't be conscious anymore, or is that like something of his doing? So is she just gonna be unconscious until Asta defeats Lucius? That's crazy. Because it actually would have been cool to see her use her Paladin given powers to help take down Lucius. That would have been interesting. But I guess that's like a defense mechanism he implanted so that any powers he gave away wouldn't be used against him. That's just genius. Like, this is all coming around full circle. Just how much of a genius Lucius is. He's really trying to make his plan foolproof. As Asta says, "Wait for me, sister. I swear I will defeat Lucius. But before that, I'll slay this dragon myself." Of course, the dragon was brought back, and considering that most of the reusing are out for the count, looks like Asta might be the one that have to slay this dragon. Now, this would definitely be interesting to see. We might even be able to see full double union again. Who knows? It's been quite a minute since we've seen Asta in a very serious fight, besides when he went up against Lucius. But of course, that was heavily one-sided in Lucius's favor. Asta was heavily outmatched there. So it seems though all the pieces are starting to come together. All the pieces a part of Lucius's plan. Asta finishing up his training. I'm assuming he could defeat this dragon, and after that he'll regroup with his comrades and probably even recruit the Ryuzen gang along with him. And we might just have to prepare to see another huge war here, considering they only have 3 days to prepare for what Lucius is about to unleash. So I'm assuming that their first intention is going to be regroup and get everybody together and let's just take on Lucius. Well, if you made it this far, I appreciate you sticking around. If you could leave a like on the video, I'd greatly appreciate that. Consider subscribing as well. You'll like it here, I promise. I'll see you in the next one. Thank you for watching.